Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a regular session of the City Council to be held on Monday, January 5th, 2026, at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to a regular session of the Dubuque City Council for January 5th, 2026. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during the sections of the agenda where public input is accepted. Input options during the live meeting include: in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input on the item they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which item you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which item you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows: Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Leyendecker.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Staver.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
And City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh. I will turn it over to you for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Adrian. I invite all who are able to please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have our swearing in of elected officials and Mayor Pro Tem. We will start with Mayor-elect Brad Kavanaugh.
All right, thank you, Adrian. And just so everybody knows, family is welcome to join the new council members as they're sworn in, so be ready when it's your turn. So, thank you. I'm actually.
All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brad Kavanaugh, do solemnly swear
I, Brad Kavanaugh, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all duties of the office of mayor
discharge all duties of the office of mayor
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
With the microphone, without it? In front. In front of it, okay, here, come this way. Yeah, great. Thank you, Felicia. Thanks.
Next is Councilmember-elect Chris Staver.
Ivy's first. That was not surprising. She's running. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. All right. Ready?
Yep.
All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Chris Staver, do solemnly swear
I, Chris Staver, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
Next is Councilmember-elect Tyson Leyendecker.
Ready to go? Yeah, all right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Tyson Leyendecker, do solemnly swear
I, Tyson Leyendecker, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member
discharge all the duties of the office of the City Council Member
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Next is Councilmember-elect Danny Sprink.
You ready?
Sure.
All right, please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Danny Sprank, do solemnly swear
I, Danny Sprank, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of City Council Member
discharge all the duties of the office of the City Council Member
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations, Danny.
And our final swearing in is Mayor Pro Tem David Resnick.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, David Resnick, do solemnly swear
I, David Resnick, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of Mayor Pro Tem
discharge all the duties of the office of Mayor Pro Tem
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
We'll move on to proclamations. Our proclamation this evening is Human Trafficking and Modern Day Slavery Prevention Month.
All right, we have Mary Lichtenberg here with us.
Good evening. On behalf of the Coalition to End Human Trafficking, I thank the City Council for this proclamation. My name is Mary Lechtenberg. I'm a Franciscan sister, and since the founding of the Coalition in 2014, some of us have been members. We have added the phrase to our coalition, and sexual exploitation. This is of grave concern today. We encourage all parents, all caregivers to become more knowledgeable in the use of AI-generated information and the grooming, the force, the fraud, and the coercion which takes place on the internet. We have received cautions from some sites which your children use. Some of them are Roblox, Kit, Apple, Discord, Reddit, Spotify, GitHub, and these are from the July 2024 list called the Dirty Dozen. You can go to that website and read more about the issues with each of these. And they do a lot of advocacy, and there's been improvement in some of these sites. There are many information websites about human trafficking, and it's up to us to learn about this crime to protect the next generation in our country and in our world.
Oh, sister, and everyone, thank you so much for being here again this year.
Welcome.
And bringing this for a number of years. How many years has it been since you've been bringing this proclamation?
10.
Been 10 years already, yeah. And you've done incredible work, and we sincerely appreciate it. I know you've worked closely with the Secretary of State's office. You've worked closely with us as a city council and with other members of the community. So
Right.
thank you for being here to accept this proclamation.
These women have just come from East Dubuque City Council meeting.
always work.
Next week, Cascade.
Always working. We sincerely appreciate it. So thank you very
Okay.
much for being here. City of Dubuque proclamation. Whereas by presidential proclamation each January has been designated National Human Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. In addition, January 11th has been designated National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And whereas the issue of sex and labor trafficking are a violation of human rights, the hope of this proclamation is to raise awareness of this topic. And whereas the City of Dubuque wishes to acknowledge the Coalition Against Human Trafficking and Sexual Exploitation for their efforts to raise awareness of human trafficking. And whereas the United Nations Global Plan of Action has 3 pillars upon which it stands: protect, prevent, prosecute. We invite all residents of Dubuque to educate themselves on this issue and to support these 3 pillars to help eradicate the problem. And whereas we invite all residents, and especially parents and caretakers, to increase their knowledge of potential evils from online uses that groom youth into trafficking through fraud, force, or coercion. And whereas human trafficking is a national, state, and local issue, we commend schools' IT staff, tech coaches, and teachers whose K-12 curriculum alert youth and parents and caretakers why limiting sharing online of personal information is a safety issue. Now, therefore, I, Brad M. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the City of Dubuque, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council staff and residents of Dubuque, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2026 as Human Trafficking and Modern Day Slavery Prevention Month. Ready for a picture for us if you see one. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, sister.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, sisters.
Right there. Thank you so much, sisters. Yeah. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll now move on to consent items. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the consent items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Please state the item you would like removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and consideration, and consent items can be found on pages 2 through 3 of the agenda.
All right, thank you, Adrian. Do we have anyone here in chambers who would like to remove any of the consent items for separate discussion this evening? Seeing no one here. Anyone virtually?
No input.
Okay. All right, thank you. Back to us then.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file the documents, adopt the resolutions, and deal with the consent items as recommended.
Second by Wethel.
Got a motion by Resnick and a second by Wethel. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Leindecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll move on to items set for public hearing. We have three. First is setting a public hearing to approve the First Amendment to the amended and restated lease agreement between the City of Dubuque and Viterra USA Grain LLC for January 20th, 2026. Second is Grand Harbor Hotel Assignment of Development Agreement for January 20th, 2026. And third is Grand Harbor Hotel Assignment of Lease Agreement for January 20th, 2026.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file, adopt the resolutions, and set the public hearings for January 20th.
Second by Sprank.
Got a motion by Roussel, second by Sprank. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Leindecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Next are public hearings. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss one of the public hearing items, please approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for the public hearing you would like to speak to and state your name and address. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for the public hearing you would like to speak to. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Public hearing number 1 is Tanglewood Court Storm Sewer Extension Project public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Sprank.
Got a motion by Resnick and a second by Sprank. Mike, please.
Thank you. Assistant City Engineer Bob Schissel is recommending City Council approve the plans, specifications, form of contract, an estimated cost of $131,501.54 for the Tanglewood Court Storm Sewer Extension Project. The city has identified a failing stormwater sewer outfall that has caused significant erosion along city property located behind residences along Thornwood Court, Thornwood Drive, and Tanglewood Court. The increased erosion along the outfall has created potential hazard that requires the outfall to be reconstructed and stabilized. This project will include the extension of storm sewer, additional stormwater intakes, and the construction of an outfall stabilization structure that would restore the eroded areas. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Mike. We're in a public hearing to consider City Council approve the plan, specification, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Tanglewood Court Storm Sewer Extension Project. Do we have anyone here in chambers to address us on this item? Seeing no one here, anything virtually?
No input.
Thank you both. Back to us then for any discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
obviously, Mr. Van Milligan, this is not a planned expense when something goes wrong like this. What are the source of these funds, and then do we plan for a certain number of issues during the year? Is that how we do that?
Yes, so we anticipate that we're going to have issues pop up during the year. And we do budget dollars for that, and then sometimes we have to reallocate dollars from other projects depending on how many unexpected things pop up.
I haven't heard, I don't know of a lot of unexpected expenses. And at the landfill, they usually say, well, we've had 6 months of, we're here in 6 months of the year, half the year, and we've got about half of our money spent in this category. Do we know how we're doing as far as these, I'll call them emergency funds? Or
Yeah, and actually, I apologize, I didn't review before I answered your question. It looks like this was actually a budgeted project.
Oh, okay.
Gus Sahoyas is the city engineer, so he can address that, but it looks like it actually was in the budget.
Gus Sahoya, city engineer. Yeah, this was actually a budgeted one that we identified a few years back. It's probably 10 or 12 foot deep, and the money's available now, so it's on the docket, and we're going to replace it. So, I mean, it's jeopardizing the sanitary sewer and everything in that area, so it's quite massive, so.
And so, thank you for that. So this was planned.
This was
So it's gotten a little worse every year until, or is it stabilized at all?
we stabilize it temporarily, but this will stabilize it, permanently.
And do you also, in your budget, I don't recall seeing a standby budget for just these occasions. Do you know how that budget is still pretty healthy?
It's never healthy. Yes, we always find stuff, and Max is here too. I just saw Max here, so we're always running up against budget issues with storm and sanitary sewer repair issues, but we do the best we can with the money we have available.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that process kind of answer. I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any others? Any other questions, discussion on this item? All right. Well, motion on the table here is to receive and file and adopt this resolution. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Liondecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Public hearing number 2 is disposal of city-owned property north of Cedar Crest Court.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Wethel.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Got a motion by Wethel, second by Roussel. Mike, please.
Thank you. Assistant City Engineer Bob Schissel is recommending City Council adopt the resolution approving the disposal of city-owned property lying north of Cedar Crest Court to JJR Investments LLC and BNZ Properties LLC via quitclaim deeds. The City of Dubuque is the current owner of the real property described as lots 1, 2, and 3, and 4 of Cedar Ridge Farm Place, number 21. This property was deeded to the city along with a stormwater detention basin lot by the developer of Cedar Ridge Farm Place, number 15. The subject property does not include any part of the city's stormwater detention basin facility and is not needed by the city except for the utility and trail easements already reserved to the city by the recent Plata survey, in case they are needed in the future. Recently, the city was contacted by the adjacent property owners on Cedar Crest Court with inquiries about acquiring portions of the subject property for a proposed residence and possible expansions of commercial businesses in the future. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and City Council approval.
Thank you, Mike. We're in a public hearing to consider City Council adopt the resolution approving for the disposal of city-owned property lying north of Cedar Crest Court in Dubuque, Iowa to JJR Investments LLC and BNZ Properties LLC via quitclaim deeds. Do we have anyone here in chambers to address us on this item? Seeing no one here. Anyone virtually?
Nope.
All right, back to us then for any discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Resnick.
I noticed there's no budget impact on us, which is great, but I don't know what quick claim is, so if you wouldn't mind, Ms. Brumwell, tell me about what a quick claim is, because it says as described above, and I must be a little slow because I still didn't get it.
It's okay. All right. So there are 3 standard forms for doing deeds. You have a warranty deed, a special warranty deed, and a quitclaim deed. And the difference between them are the warranties or the guarantees that come with them. A quitclaim deed is essentially we are giving you what we have, and there's no warranty that is coming with that. You're taking it essentially as is.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions, discussion on this item? All right. Motion here is to receive and file and adopt this resolution. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Liondecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Public hearing number 3 is resolution approving a development agreement by and between the City of Dubuque, Iowa and GT Novelty Condos LLC, including the issuance of urban renewal tax increment revenue obligations.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Got a motion by Roussel, second by Wethel. Mike, please.
Thank you. Economic Development Director Jill Connors is recommending City Council adopt the attached resolution approving a development agreement by and between the City of Dubuque and GT Novelty Condos LLC, including the issuance of urban renewal tax increment revenue grant obligations. GT Novelty Condos LLC owns the Novelty Ironworks building at 333 East 10th Street in the Millwork District. This mixed-use property currently includes retail establishments throughout most of the first floor and 76 apartments on the upper floors above the center and easternmost parts of the building. The westernmost portion of the building was completed to the white box stage during original redevelopment of the building by the prior owner. A white box stage area is a commercial space finished only to a basic code-compliant shell with essential utilities in place, leaving all final interior build-out to the tenant. This section of the building has been vacant since the original redevelopment area were completed in 2016. GT Novelty Condos LLC has purchased the building and is proposing to construct 4 sale condominiums in the white box area of the building. The key elements of the development agreement include the following. The developer will make a capital investment of approximately $6 million to redevelop the property. The developer must create 34 condominium units. The developer will receive 15 years of tax increment financing incentives in the form of semi-annual rebates. Tax increment financing incentives are estimated to not exceed $1,030,104. The city will award a $10,000 housing creation grant for each new unit created for a total of $340,000. The city will amend the Greater Downtown Urban Renewal District Plan to accommodate the issuance of tax increment financing incentives. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and city council approval. And if you don't mind, we had several questions from residents today. And so I added some material to the city council agenda, and I would like to just cover some of that material now.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And also, if anybody in the audience is interested in this particular topic, there's a set of folders somewhere back there that have all the material in it that I'm going to reference right now. But to start out, recently, the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation hired the East Central Intergovernmental Association to do a housing needs study. Now, this was a follow-up to 3 years ago. GDDC, the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, did a housing needs study, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the results of the latest housing needs study concludes the following. The Dubuque Housing Needs Assessment finds that the local housing market is performing well, supported by a growing population, strong employment, and steady construction activity. However, and this particular study covered the entire county, not just the city of Dubuque, says, however, the county also faces emerging pressures related to the following. Growing retired population that will require more accessible and low-maintenance housing units or housing options. Replacing retirees in the workplace will require in-migration, which will require more housing. Limited home vacancies, lower days on the market, and rising prices indicate a low for-sale inventory. Rising prices and declining affordability for low and moderate income households. Ongoing needs for diverse housing options, including workforce, senior, and middle market owner-occupied housing. Continued population growth that will require an estimated 1,937 to 2,560 additional housing units between 2026 and 2035. Continued monitoring and support for housing rehabilitation, new housing construction will be essential to sustain balance and ensure that all residents have access to safe, attainable housing in the coming decade. So this study was just done in October of 25. And then I would like to mention several other things that also we got from the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. So they do an interview process every year of corporate CEOs throughout Dubuque County. And if you look at the interviews they did in 2020 to 2021, they interviewed 305 companies. And the number 3 concern of those 305 companies was housing access. Then the next year, 2021 to 2022, they interviewed 307 companies. And their number 2 concern, so it had gone up from number 3 to number 2, was housing access. Then 22 to 2023, they interviewed 305 companies. And once again, the number 2 issue was housing access. And then in 2023 to 2024, they interviewed 270 companies, and now it had risen to the number one concern was housing access. Then if you look at 2024 to 2025, they interviewed 255 companies, and once again, increased housing opportunities for workforce was the number one issue. Then in their most recent interviews, which are October through December of 2025, they did 71 employers. And once again, the number one issue of those employers is increased housing opportunities for workforce. Then one of the things they do in these interviews is they ask the employers to rate services from the city, from other organizations, the county, and others. And they generally track 20 listings from ranking these services from these companies. So if you look at 2023 to 2024, interviewed 270 employers, they ranked housing as the third worst issue for our communities to deal with that issue. In other words, it's the only things that were less than that were air cargo and air passenger service. And then in their interviews from 2024 to 2025, where they interviewed 255 employers, now it was the second worst issue was dealing with housing issues. Air passenger service was the only thing that ranked less than that. Then October to December 2025, so the most recent set of interviews, 71 employer interviews, and housing was the third worst issue they felt like it was being dealt with. And then they also have they did what they called the Next Generation Perception Survey. So they surveyed 1,157 persons, and this was in 2023, by the way, of 30 years old and younger, and rating the importance of 35 community factors when choosing where to live or work in the future versus the greater Dubuque region ranking and delivering those services. And their number two concern was affordable home ownership, and their number 6 concern was affordable quality rental housing. So these are people 30 years old and younger that are making decisions on where they're going to live. So 3 years ago, the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation did a housing needs survey. So I just talked to you about the one they just recently did, 3 years later, but 3 years ago they did their first one. And they came back to the mayor and city council and they said, hey, we need over 1,100 housing units to deal with our shortage that we have today. So the mayor and city council immediately went through a process to identify how could you impact the creation of housing in our community. And what you decided was to create enhanced incentive packages to create housing. We already had incentive packages, but nowhere near the level that the council adopted 3 years ago. So if you look at what's happened in those 3 years, we now have either had completed or on the drawing board today, 2,601 housing units. Almost 400 of those are workforce housing units. Then you have this recent study that says, hey, you still need a whole bunch more. This is nice that you've had an impact on it, but you need between 1,937 and 2,560 additional housing units between 2026 and 2035. And that might sound like a long time out, but it's not, because it takes a long time to put together one of these major projects. So I told you that you had some incentive programs before you enhanced the programs 3 years ago. So let's look at what kind of impact the programs that you've created, the ones that existed, and then how you enhanced them. So between 2010 and 2025, you've used tax increment financing to incentive housing projects. So, excuse me. So when you look at how did that incentivize housing creation from 2010 to 2025 through a 15-year period, there's been $34.5 million in tax increment financing projects spread across 60 projects. That's leveraged $326 million in private investment to create nearly 1,500 housing units within the city. Then, if you just look at a list of projects that have been rehabilitation projects, so that's in our downtown, in our Millwork district, in those kinds of places, so where buildings are being rehabilitated, not new construction. There's been 51 projects since 2010. 31 of those projects use tax increment financing. Let's see, it's created 700 housing units in those rehabilitation projects. And then, as I mentioned to you, that 3 years ago, you enhanced the programs. And so we now have, and it's attached to the agenda item tonight, a very simple matrix that a developer can look at and can say, okay, if I'm going to go through all the effort to design a project, buy a property, what kind of assurance am I going to have that when I'm ready to go, that the city's going to be there for me to help me make this project financially work? All they have to do is go on the city website, look at this matrix, and it tells them exactly what the city council has already approved as incentives, which always takes a vote of the city council to actually approve the development agreement, but they feel like they have some assurance, since the incentives have already been approved by the council, that their development agreement will be approved. That doesn't mean it has to be. It just means that they have some level of confidence it is, because the council has said, these are the incentives that we support. And at the end of 2025, the council added the definition of condominiums to the incentives, because before it was only for rental housing or single-family detached housing. And so in addition to that matrix that's on the city website, there's a downtown housing incentive program eligibility guidelines, which is also part of this packet that I passed out. And so once again, a developer can read this and say, okay, I have some assurance that if I meet these guidelines, that I have a good chance to get those incentives that the council's already approved. And so, yes, I'm willing to spend the money to buy a building, hire an architect and an engineer and a financial consultant and an attorney to put a project together, because I have some assurance that in the end, my project can be successful, because I'm going to get some support from the community to make that work. And I also included in the packet and the attached to the agenda item just some information about population. And there's 99 counties in the state of Iowa, and we're one of only 7 counties that's having any appreciable growth. So we are having tremendous success working with our businesses as they create jobs, working to make this a community of choice where people want to live here because it's got all these great amenities, but at the same time, they have to have a place to live. And so that's where all the housing incentive and housing creation comes in. So I think we want to continue to be one of only 7 counties in the state of Iowa that are growing. And I think that supports my recommendation to support this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing, of course.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Well, we are in a public hearing to consider City Council adopt the attached resolution approving a development agreement by and between the City of Dubuque, Iowa and GT Novelty Condos LLC, including the issuance of urban renewal tax increment revenue grant obligations. Do we have anyone here in the chambers to address us on this item? Please.
Carl Stiglitz, 533 Lowell Street, Dubuque, 52001. My issue primarily has to do with the tax incremental financing mechanism being used to finance these projects. I applaud the efforts to try and facilitate and bring development efforts to our community. Yes, we probably need some of that. But if you look at the way this shakes out, if I understand this correctly, you have 34 units that are going to get $10,000 apiece when the developer gets the project done, which means basically that's a feed directly to the developer. Then you have the ongoing incremental financing efforts that's going to push out then the realization by the rest of us in that value that's added to the tax base. That doesn't really come to fruition for the rest of us for another 10, 15 years, whatever that period is. So in terms of what it feels like to the local taxpayers, we don't realize the immediate benefits that the developer gets. And then, of course, those people that are buying these units, they're also going to be feeling a reduction for those first years of theirs. And so the other thing that I hadn't really thought about speaking to tonight, but it's brought up by Mr. Van Milligan, and it's that the growth that's happening in Dubuque County is mostly county. We are rather landlocked in terms of space, so apparently it looks like we're trying to encourage vertical addition rather than going this direction. And my question, because I grew up son of a baby boomer, or I'm a baby boomer, I guess, and the housing model that we saw happen back in the 60s as my family went to California, the tract housing model where thousands of homes just sprang up almost overnight, single family, small, nice little homes. Similar things happened across the country. Have we supplanted that American dream with somehow the apartment is the housing unit of choice? I think somehow that really doesn't seem to be what most people would want if they're the type that are going to come in and want to have long-term careers in the community. So anyway, I really think in terms of equity to the taxpayers, something needs to be done with that TIF mechanism that also provides some kind of immediate offset then to our tax burden as well, because really by rights, growth should be where the additional revenues coming into the city coffers. And so if there's any questions, that's how I feel about the matter.
All right, well, thank you, Carl, for your comments. Any other comments this evening on this subject? Please, come on up.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, especially newcomers, Councilman Leyendecker and Councilman Staver. Just so you know, full disclosure, Chris's lovely daughter, my granddaughter, I asked her what she thought of the swearing-in ceremony, and she gave it 2 thumbs up. So congratulations. My name is Rick Dickinson. I have the pleasure of serving as the president and CEO of Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, and I reside at 205 Hill Street here in Dubuque. With me tonight is Jason White, currently our Vice President of Business Services, and as of Monday, January 12th, he will be the new President and CEO of Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. So this will be my last opportunity to visit with the Mayor and Council of Dubuque, and in doing that, I want to thank you for 30 years of continued progress and success. I rise here tonight in support of the application by the developer, Novelty Works, for this incentive package. My dad was quite a character and had interesting use of the English language, always said about things like this, you can't lose something you didn't have. You can't lose something you don't have. We do not have these housing units in our market. At the Novelty Works location, it's been 8 years of no development of single-family residential property or the condos. And in fact, this community had little development itself until Greater Dubuque Development asked the business community what was missing in having this be a community of choice, and how should we address that, and then came to the mayor and council and said, we ask that you change the incentives for building housing in Dubuque. Because in order to be a community of choice, you have to have housing. If you want to have more people, you must have the housing that they need. Now, no one wants to build the first apartment or the first home that no one needs, because that's a recipe for bankruptcy. That's why we conducted the studies, as the city manager explained. Those studies financed by the investors in Greater Dubuque Development clearly indicate there is a need for additional housing. And in fact, that housing, in many cases, the desirable housing for that younger generation does require higher density and wanting to live in a live-work environment just like the millwork district. I'm a baby boomer myself. That's not my dream, but guess what? It is theirs. And these are the people we're trying to attract to our community. So I'd like to thank you again for the privilege of working with you over the years. We certainly endorse this application for funding by Novelty Works. It's part of what will make Dubuque greater and greater as we continue to grow. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Rick, for your comments. Please.
Good evening. I'm Tom Kelzer. I'm part of the GT Novelty Condos. I live at 9565 Royalwood Drive in Piasta. And I guess first off, I'd like to just reference some of what Mike had said on how the process works. And a lot of what was approved 3 years ago through council and putting it forward for this is how we kind of came to even purchasing this building a year ago with the idea of having a development opportunity and to add more housing. And so that was kind of our process, thought process through as well. As far as the housing, I wanted to touch a little bit. There's always a lot of needs assessments and how many housing units are needed and stuff in Dubuque. But just for context, we have 76 apartments in there currently. And of that, I think we have 3 openings right now. And, in the dead of winter, you got holidays, first of the year. Since New Year's Eve, which we ended up getting 4 inquiries for apartments just on New Year's Eve day, but from then till today, we've had 12 inquiries for apartments. Just to give you an idea of how much, typically this time of year, I'm a real estate broker. Usually this winter time, everything kind of slows down and stops. But I also thought it'd be interesting to pull some statistics as to what houses are actually listed today. So I pulled some just a couple hours ago. And in the city of Dubuque, from 150 to 250,000, there's 10 active listings in that price range. In 250 to 350,000 range, there's 9 active listings. And that is kind of the price range that we're looking to be in for the condos. From 350,000 to 500,000, there's 36. So quite a few more in the higher end than the lower end. But even with the total of all these units, for a community of this size, that's not very many active houses for people to, if they're looking for a house. Again, I know we're not in the spring, the numbers will go up then, as people tend to want to move and stuff more, but there's certainly a need, for having that. Currently, with this project, it's going to be kind of a breakup of between 2 bedrooms and 3 bedroom units. They'll average in price around $289,000 is the average price for all of them. 26 units will be 2 bedroom, 2 bath. 8 units will be 3 bedroom, 3 bath. I know within the development agreement, it says a minimum cost of $6 million. So, back 10 months ago when you fill out the application and you start putting the stuff together, it's before you even have final plans or drawings and things. So we will far exceed the $6 million once now everything is done and we're actually, going to hit the ground to try to get something moving here. Then you start adding in the cost to acquire the building, your carrying costs. A project like this with financing and for condos, there is some risk involved, so you tend to pay a little bit more in an interest rate as you're carrying those costs. So there's quite an amount of dollar that goes into it that having some of these incentives obviously helps, with making it work and making it all come together. We, hope, and obviously, condos is a little bit different in a high-rise building for Dubuque than what there has been. And, obviously I'm fairly confident that we can get them sold and that there will be enough interest. And I feel, many of those buyers are going to be coming from a single-family home, which then will become available for others to purchase as well. So we'd really hope that you guys would, find this a worthy project, that you get it approved. I guess some of the things to point out, and as far as any of the questions on the TIF, and, obviously, our financing is subject to getting a development agreement done, having the TIF, and having it done. So, if we didn't have these, our bank is not going to finance it, which is not going to create the units, which will create no additional tax or revenue, and we still have empty space in the building. So, I kind of look at it as more of a pay-as-you-go. So as they're built and they become part of the taxed, then, the ones that started in 2010, and you look at that list, they're all coming ready to roll off, and now you're going to start seeing the benefit, for all that, which, that's into perpetuity, and I guess that's what we're looking for in the city. So, all right, I'm available for any questions as well.
Thank you, Tom, for your comment. Anyone else tonight? All right, that's everybody here. Anyone virtually? All right.
Written input was submitted by Paul Kern, 74 South Grandview Avenue, and Luis Del Toro, 901 Gilliam Street. That's been uploaded to the agenda item.
All right. Thank you very much, Adrian. All right, well, I'll kick us off for this discussion and then open up to any questions that any council members have. So this is, first of all, I'm glad that we're having this discussion again. As we enter into a new council era here, we've got 2 new members with us. We can start to talk about housing again and figure out kind of where we want this to sit. I do want to start, Jill, I'm probably going to come to you first just so to warn you here, and then maybe Mike. I want to start kind of with where the conversation has gone so far. There were a lot of emails going back and forth, and I'm going to guess that people that sent those emails from the desk here are going to be able to talk about the questions that they asked and have those answered publicly here. And if not, we've got them on email. We can talk those through. But I think that for me, it seemed like this conversation really started in earnest with a fairly unfortunate headline. I don't think the Telegraph Herald necessarily meant for people to take it this way, but the developers seek $1.4 million in public support for Dubuque Millwork District condos. To me, as a reader, made it sound like we have a bag of cash filled with $1.4 million that we're pushing across the table to hand to developers. That's not what's going on here, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. So I was hoping that you could clarify kind of the breakdown for us, Jill, and where we are. It's in the memo, but maybe a little bit more about what TIF is for people so they understand it. I don't think everybody took it that way, but I think a number of people did, and I'd like to just kind of, at least a number of people that reached out to me, so I'd like to be able to hear from you on that.
Jill Connors, Economic Development Director. Tax increment financing, which will be used, well, there's 2 separate things happening here. One is the grant program, which has been in place since before I came to the city. Sometime in the mid-2000s is when we started the $10,000 unit program for downtown rehabilitation projects, And then, so there will be $10,000 a unit, and that's a grant that we don't hand over that bag of cash right away. We wait until the project is complete, and they submit proof of eligible expenses, all of that, and then at that point, they receive that grant. And then for the tax increment financing, what happens is, if nothing happens, all of the same taxes keep going to the taxing bodies. So it's just this straight line, and typically it's actually a decreasing line because the longer a building sits, the worse shape it's in, it's going to be assessed lower, so there's actually fewer taxes going into the taxing bodies. When we do a tax increment financing agreement, what happens then is the developer does the project, that raises the amount of taxes that are due on the property. But in order to incentivize the work, what we do is we freeze that base. They are still paying in all of that same money that they already were. So that kind of go back to Mr. Dickinson's comment of you can't miss what you don't have. So if you don't have this housing, all the taxing bodies are still getting the same amount of money they always were. And then as the taxing value goes up over time, they continue to get rebated that increase, but not the base. They still pay the base. And then at the end of the term of the agreement, then all of that higher, that larger piece of pie, then all gets distributed to the taxing bodies. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Please, Mike, yeah.
I just add a little nuance to that. So even the new value created, the developer does not get 100% of those new value taxes rebated. So by state law, you cannot rebate any taxes that were passed by referendum. So both the Dubuque Community School District and Northeast Iowa Community College have what's called an instructional support levy, where the residents voted in a referendum to allow them to raise their property tax levy. That can't be rebated. And also, the Dubuque Community School District has what's called a Pebble Fund, and that's a maintenance fund for their buildings. That also was passed by referendum. So in round numbers, the developer can only get about 90% of the taxes paid on the incremental new value rebated to them.
Yep, excellent. All right, thank you both. So I might have a few other, actually, I will have a few other comments and maybe some other questions, but I'll open it up to everyone else to be able to have some discussion here. Mr. Resnick.
Mayor, while you're up there, I know that you answered some citizens' concerns today, and you made the statement that there is no cost to current taxpayers. So my question to you, the housing creation grant, is that federal money, or how is that funded?
That's created in the downtown TIF area, and that's a budgeted amount in our capital improvement project budget
Okay.
every year.
So it's a special area. They say, we would like to develop this area especially, and we set aside that planned. Is there, so it's not federal money, but it's a federal program, or is it our program?
No, it's a local program.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's funded by Greater Downtown TIF dollars.
So it's,
that are there.
so again, those tax dollars don't go into the general kitty, right? They're specifically mandated to go towards building projects in that area. Is that mostly correct?
Well, there are multiple capital improvement projects across the city departments that get funded with TIF, and this is one of those programs.
And do we ever run out of money, or, I mean, Mr. Zoya said we always do, but.
Yep.
So we do. So there is a limit. So people should get in there and claim that while they can, because there is a limit to this, but it is planned, and it comes from that special part of the city in which this development is going to be.
Right.
And do we try to be consistent between developers?
We're always consistent.
Okay.
Yep, we have the ground rules, we have those guidelines that are out there that we've seen recently, had brought to council, and they get applied equally to everybody.
I mean, we have one negotiator here, and that's the city manager. But you've been in closed sessions, and we're not going to talk about specific instances, but the council does have input and gives the city manager, and maybe the city manager could talk about that, and gives parameters, and he talked about what the result of those parameters with that grid that he talked about earlier, right? So we try to be consistent. The council does have input on what that is, and we have one negotiator with your assistance, of course, and that'd be the city manager. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mike.
The one distinction I would make in this project is the city council going in closed session is restricted to if there's property disposition, either the city's buying some property or selling some property, or there's the potential for litigation. So this is not one of the projects that would have been a closed session item, because we're not acquiring any property from them, and they're not buying any property from us. And the creation of all these incentive programs were all public discussions at this table at regular city council meetings where anybody could watch and provide any input they wanted to provide over the last 3 years of creating and modifying these incentives. The other thing I would say is I agree with the terminology, we're always consistent, but that doesn't mean we're rigid. So an example is when this developer came to us and said, hey, you have all these great incentive programs to create rental property, but I want to invest millions and millions of dollars in a downtown building to rehabilitate it, and I want to do condominiums. We came back to the city council and said something that hadn't been considered before, and we recommended you add condominiums to the program, and you did. So yes, we're consistent, but as we learn new pieces of information, we also bring that to you in case you want to modify the programs that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Wetham.
While Jill's up here, I just want to ask one question, then I'll turn it over to everyone else. Just to clarify, because I want to make sure everybody hears this. The Greater Downtown TIF that is collected and distributed, can only be used in certain regions
Yes.
of the city.
Correct.
And so when we talk about building neighborhoods, for instance, smaller homes in an area out west where the land is flat and people want to develop, this money cannot be used there. This is money that can only be used in the downtown TIF region.
Right.
So I just want everybody to know that. It's not that we have a pocket of money that we can use anywhere for housing with this. It is specifically targeted to infill housing. And so I appreciate that everybody wants different kinds of housing. I think all income streams across our entire city need to be addressed as far as housing goes. So I appreciate the comments very much. I am in agreement with them. The kicker is, we've got a developer who wants to develop an empty space. And we have TIF dollars that can only be used in specific areas. And so I just want everyone to be clear, it's not that we can distribute this money willy-nilly. This is money that has a very specific and distinct purpose. Am I correct in all
That
of
is,
that?
yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mike.
if I could just add something to that. So the gentleman made the reference to having single-family lots. So when you look at our documentation on that, there's actually 406 single-family lots available. And the city does have programs to help those developers also. It's just not downtown urban renewal dollars. It's use of tax increment financing based on their development, and the property tax is paid on their development. And so we've also had, I would say, some success getting single-family lots made available for people to build new homes, people or the developer themselves.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Sprang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was door knocking on the campaign, talked to over 1,200 houses and such, the thing that resonated with folks that were, say, in their mid-50s to early 60s, late 60s, was they wanted condos. They wanted condos. Now, I don't know if they're going to want to buy a condo in downtown. I don't know. But condos and townhouses was what folks want to purchase of a certain demographic. This is an opportunity for us to get those for some folks. I don't know who's going to buy them, but I'm sure someone will. But I'm going to be supporting this because this is what my constituents told me. They wanted condos over apartments. We have enough apartments, even though the study says we need more. But I'm looking forward to hearing more condos come to us. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Russell?
Thanks. First, I want to thank those residents that send us in questions. It really helps us ask good questions as well. I think this is a big and exciting project, bringing home ownership opportunities to the Millwork District in an area that's been vacant since 2016. So there were some important points that I think the data is telling us. One, employers are concerned about housing for their employees. And as Mr. Sprank said, different kinds of housing for different age groups in our community. Number two, it's important that we have a method. We have a method that shows our housing incentives so that our developers know what's available, what can they expect, and encourages projects like this that may not happen without them. I like the fact that TIF is performance-based, so the developer is only going to receive this rebate after the property produces those additional tax revenues. And lastly, it benefits our whole community when TIF leverages those private dollars. So for example, the $326 million that was leveraged by the last $34 million in TIF investment. So overall, I think this is a great project that's going to really bring something exciting to the Millwork District, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leindecker, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Van Milligan, I'd like to first start out by saying I applaud the property owners for acquiring this property and taking on this endeavor. I think it's quite a project, and it's one of the key buildings down in the Millwork District. Some of my comments earlier that I was asking regarding ROI on the property and the project itself. Understand that, TIF, there really isn't necessarily an ROI on that component, but I do think there's an ROI component on having those residents down in the Millburg district and either attracting new residents to Dubuque or creating available housing in Dubuque. And so that's something that I think I look forward to working on and having, to show what does that potential return look like. It's not only that, it's, the building supply that's going to go into this project and those contractors that are going to be a part of it, I think will be very impactful. The one question I did have, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to answer it tonight, but is regarding condominium financing. From my background and understanding, it can be challenging to obtain condominium financing. There's various requirements with having 50% of the units sold or pre-sold, and there's percentages of investors that are allowed to get in to get traditional condominium financing. And I think that's what residents would be impacted by, is to be able to maintain or obtain a traditional mortgage on the property, and to get those attractive terms that are out there. So I hope that they're able to achieve that, and I think that would be impactful for the project overall.
Thanks, Mr. Landecker.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, is that a question the question you're asking is more a question of the buyers themselves working with the banks, right? Would it be a question that we could refer to Mr. Kelzer as the developer? I'm just curious.
I think it would be, to see if his financial institution has, said, hey, will you take on those as a portfolio mortgage, or if they would say they would work to get it up to that 50%.
Yeah. So,
pre-sold or
Mr. Kelzer, if you would, we're sorry to put you on the spot on this one. And if you don't have an answer, if your answer is I don't know, that's fine too. But just curious what your thoughts are on that based on Mr. Leindecker's comments.
Well, kind of as Danny Sprank had said, with talking to people within that upper end age group, those are the ones that are contacting us right now. So my gut is probably half of these or more are going to be all cash buyers because they have a house currently. They've lived there for 20 years, 25 years. They're tired of cutting grass, tired of shoveling snow, dealing with maintenance issues and things. And so they can sell that and they have the cash then just to buy this. So most of the people that have been in contact with me have been in that situation. As far as any of the younger age that would like to get into it, the bank that has financing the project is willing to keep them in-house until we meet those criteria. So.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kelzer.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mike, go ahead.
So, Councilmember Leindecker, I'm glad you bring up the concept of return on investment, because some people might say, well, it's 15 years of property tax payments being given up, but something happens in year 16, and that's the fact that the rebates stop. But also during that 15-year period, when you look at, as I mentioned earlier, that we have 2,601 total units in the last 3 years that have been completed or are on the drawing board, even though we use tax increment financing as an incentive for those units, people live in those units. And those people, they shop at the grocery stores, they shop at they shop at the clothing stores, they go to the restaurants, they go to entertainment within our community. So a lot of the things that happen in our community, like the opening of a store, is because there's people who are spending money at those places. So it's not that you have to wait for your return on investment. As a community, you're going to get that return on investment very quickly as those people spend money. And one other important point is that I'd like to point out is this is also a benefit to the Dubuque Community School District. Because if you look at over the last 10 years, they've had an 8.5% decrease in their enrollment. The only way they're going to get an increase in enrollment is if there's more people. And so in all our conversations over the years with the Dubuque Community School District, they've been very supportive of the city using tax increment financing to make things like this happen, because they know as these 2,600 units get occupied, and hopefully what 1,900 more we'll be talking about over the next 10 years, that those are going to be kids, that they're going to have kids and they're going to go to our school system. So there is a quicker return on investment than just the property tax payment.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Mr. David, go ahead.
I had a question. So as these condominiums sell, does the condominium homeowner, now, are they paying regular taxes, property tax? Or is that part of the TIF agreement?
Yes, so that's part of the TIF agreement. So the only property taxes that continue to go to the existing taxing bodies are the taxes that are being paid today. So I'll call that the base taxes.
Right.
Any new taxes created over this 15-year period, for instance, people buy these units and start paying taxes, those are the taxes that get rebated. 90% of them get rebated back for the 15-year period.
To the developer?
Yes, that's right. They get rebated back to the developer.
So the person living in the condo pays
Yes, they still,
regular taxes,
yes.
whatever exceeds the value of the original assessment.
So the answer to that for me is yes. Really, that's between the developer and the buyer.
Right.
So maybe the buyer says, yeah, I'll pay that much, but yeah, I want half of your rebate or whatever. That's between.
Either way, the city isn't growing our tax base immediately with the creation of these units.
Right.
Which I thought possibly would be, but okay. Yeah, so I got a lot of questions too about, spending the money, and I think how Brad mentioned the way it was framed kind of set the tone. I think, you can't really, put the developer on trial here. I mean, he's essentially met the criteria for the programs we have. I mean, that's what it is. If you have a problem with the programs, that's a separate conversation. Anybody has the opportunity to do this because they're in place as we sit here. So, I mean, I think it's, in terms of the type of housing, I think it's great. I think condos are really hitting the sweet spot for the aging population. I think that that particular area is, I think, finally has some real momentum behind it. I think that space has sat empty for how long, so it shows you that was a difficult property to develop. And I think, I think he hit the nail on the head, and I think a lot of things came, together at the right time for him. And I think the big deal about these incentives, it's the spark that kind of pushes people to do this sort of thing. I mean, for this developer, this isn't, the end-all be-all to the deal. And I think some people think, well, would he even need it or would this happen without it? I don't think you're missing the point of this being the spark to create the opportunity for him to do it. So I think there is some real benefit in that. I think, saying you can't miss what you don't have is really a great point, because it's sat there for how long now, and we're just getting what we're getting. So it gets developed, whether we make the money today or 15 years, we planted the seed and we'll get the crop in 15 years, or we sit here with an empty building again for another 8 or so. So I think in terms of ROI, it does have real dollars and cents behind it. I also believe, like Tyson said, that area, I think it's undisputable that if you own a property, you take care of your community in that area a little bit better. I think that particular area would really benefit from that. I think it's I think it's a great deal. I mean, I would like to see more condos like that, especially with our aging population. And I think the point of that opening, another home that can be infilled with people from other communities or the county, either way, that grows our tax base. That's the whole point. I think at the end of the day is to, create a bigger tax base so we all pay a little bit less. And things like this is what encourages that. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Yeah, Ms. Wethel, go ahead.
So just some additional comments. First of all, Mr. Kelzer, and to Mr. Kerner as well. I represent Ward 4, where your development would be, and I just want to thank you. I have heard and appreciate a number of people have reached out with me to discuss concerns, and I think some of the concerns have to do with an understanding of, as Councilmember Staver stated, an understanding of the programs that are available, and that's a separate conversation from this specific item. You have followed the rules. You are looking forward to putting millions of dollars into a space that is unused. How wonderful. Thank you. I just, out of concern and question, had some thoughts earlier today, and I appreciate staff very quickly responding to me on them. And it was a comparable building in a few ways, mostly by proximity of the Caradco building, also in the Millwork District. And so the year that the Caradco, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot. What was the year the Caradco building development agreement was completed around? Was it
2010, 2011?
Okay. So that year, the 15-year tax increment financing was 1.36 million. Today, we're talking about 1,030,000. At that time, the downtown housing grant provided to that, again, this is in 2011, so we're talking a while back. The downtown housing grant at that time was 720,000. Today, we're talking about 340,000. And so when we talk about what we have done to that building, are you kidding me? I don't need to tell Mr. Leindecker, as your bank is there. This is a situation in which we have had developers come to the table decades ago and say they want to invest, and we did what we could. And the state of Iowa did what they could. For the Caradco building, the state of Iowa provided 8.9 million in CDBG funding as well. And so when we talk about how do we build housing, how do we infill with old buildings that exist that we want to use and not leave empty, there is an example in front of us today. And if I did not solely appreciate what you are willing to do for our city in taking this space and being willing to invest and take risk, shame on me. I'm really grateful for you and for your organization to do this work. So thank you, staff, for coming back with a lot of answers really quickly today. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments?
I would just like to kind
Mr. Saber.
of clarify one thing too. When I saw the 1.4 million, and I know that there's a $750,000 cap, I thought it was combined, and they're separate incentives. So the 750 cap is on the 340 per unit, and the TIF is separate. So, I was a little confused that they were changing the rules, or that if there was a metric that made this a better deal, that we needed to do something differently. But he's within the guidelines that are set. I mean, again, I think if there's a movement to change the guidelines, that's a separate conversation. I think again, well, I like the incentive, and I think he's using it in a great way. So,
Thank you, Mr. Staver. All right. Okay. Well, a couple comments from my end. Jill, thank you very much for your work. I don't think I have any other questions for you, so thank you very, very much for that. And I also appreciate the fact that there were a lot of questions that went back and forth, and Mike, you brought some new information here, and then it also got posted. So Adrian, thank you very much for putting that on the website along with the documents that came for this particular item. Mr. Stiglitz, you mentioned something specifically, and thank you for your comments today. You mentioned something about, I think the way you put it was, have we supplanted the American dream of, having home ownership with the vertical buildings? That's not the intention, I don't think, of at least it's not mine, and it's not the intention of the council. It is what we've seen, though, in the building that we've had in the last few years. Apartments have been what have shown up the most, and when we open the door for the incentives, the developers that showed up were mostly interested in building apartments first, is what it appeared. But that's not the only thing that we've seen built either. We've actually seen quite a few single-family homes that are coming online. Some of those were before we started offering these incentives, and they just continue to be built. And they're in places where, I think it was also you who mentioned that we're kind of landlocked, but they are in the places that have some open areas to build new homes. I think the more important point, though, is one that was actually later then made by Mr. Kelzer, which is people moving along the housing spectrum. And that's part of the point of what our incentives are. It's always been part of the point of what these incentives are. When you have more places for people to live of different types, people move along that spectrum. Mr. Sprank pointed it out. There's just really good evidence along when you look at other cities and the way that housing has worked in other places when you have housing incentives like this. If you have apartments that people who no longer want to live in a home can live in, they can move to those apartments. If you have condos that people no longer want to live in a single-family home that it has its own four walls, they want to move to that different place, then they move to those different places. But then it opens up those houses. And oftentimes it opens up starter homes for people, opens up places for people to go. And that's the point, is to try to do this. Now, this is a really good discussion. And this is the discussion we need to continue to have, because it is really important over these next few years that we take a close look at this as we start to do this, because this has worked incredibly well. I mean, if you look at this, I'm looking at the housing creation rehab list that we got today that has all this list of all the incentives that were taken. You can see there's a major switch in 2023 and in 2024 for the way that we started to use these incentives differently, and how developers are starting to use them and be able to build this type of housing. We have basically opened the floodgates to say we want housing, period. So whatever housing you want to build, bring it, and we will incentivize that housing, and we will do so across the board. I think it's worked incredibly well. I think it's a success story that needs to be continued. However, I do think there's a discussion to be had as we go through the next few years to make sure that we don't need to start pointing those incentives in very specific directions. For instance, do we need more housing downtown? Do we need more housing on the north end or on the south end of town or on the west side? I think those are real discussions that we should have. We should work with GDDC and other organizations to make sure that we're recognizing that. ECIA is another organization we can continue to lean on. Because I do think there could come a time where we've flooded the market in too much of a direction with one type of housing or one place. And I do think we need to have that discussion as we go forward. I don't think we're there yet, though. I think right now we're good. And tonight we're talking about a very different type of housing. We actually haven't done this before. We have an incentivized condo. So this is actually kind of feeding into my argument in a lot of ways. So what I'm hoping that we're doing is actually creating a community benefit in the long term. There is a short-term component to this that is a sacrifice for the fact that we have to capture taxes and sacrifice those for a number of years to be able to build a longer-term base of housing and places for people to live. And that's what brings people, that's what brings the things people want, the services people want, the stores that people want. I mean, that's how we do the population growth, but then also how we actually have places for the people who are Dubuquers now and want to remain Dubuquers, even if the place they're living currently isn't working for them. So I'm happy that we've continued to work on this and continued to move forward, have these new ideas, that staff keeps bringing new ideas to us like this to be able to have a new type of incentive. I think it's been very successful. I want to continue that success. And I'm glad that we've had a really good, healthy discussion about it tonight, and I'm looking forward to many more. Well, the motion on the table here is to receive and file and adopt this resolution. So Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Leyendecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Public hearing number 4 is resolution approving a subordination agreement by and between the City of Dubuque, Iowa, Masterpiece Properties LLC, and Mound City Bank.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move that we receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Got a motion by Resnick, second by Wethel. Mike, please.
Thank you. Interim Housing and Community Development Director Sandy Fowler is recommending City Council adopt the attached resolution approving a subordination agreement by and between the City of Dubuque and Masterpiece Properties LLC and Mound City Bank. Masterpiece Properties LLC, operated by local owner Josh Jansen, intends to refinance the properties located at 675 and 677 West 3rd Street. Mound City Bank is financing the real estate transaction and requires a first secured position of repayment. Since the city mortgage was recorded in 2023, the city would automatically be moved to the first secured position upon the original mortgage payoff. Historically, the city has consented to subordinating the secured position behind a primary lender. The primary lender will have a higher loan amount and therefore more risk associated with its loan. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and city council approval.
We're in a public hearing to consider City Council adopt the attached resolution approving a subordination agreement by and between the City of Dubuque, Iowa, Masterpiece Properties LLC, and Mound City Bank. Do we have anyone here in chambers to address us on this item? Seeing no one here, anyone virtually? Thank you, Corey. All right, thanks, Adrian. Back to us then for discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Spring.
This is a question for Krena, actually. So this is like the second time we've had this kind of similar issue with this subordination agreement. Would there be a way to save you time to write a clause in agreements with people that it can happen by default? So it saves you and us the time of going through all this all over again? Or is not? If it's not legal, you tell me.
So technically, when you subordinate a mortgage, it's considered a disposition of real estate, and by state law, that requires a public hearing.
Okay.
So this process would be mandated, unfortunately.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you for trying, though.
Okay. So red tape we can't remove, essentially, is what you're
Correct,
saying.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Resnick?
And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question is, I don't like the sound of the subordination agreement. It just sounds like that, just the word itself. Now, have the citizens lost money because of a subordination agreement? Can you think of are we imperiled at all by this agreement as far as our funds?
So there's always risk in a loan. I can't think of one off the top of my head where we've lost money being subordinated to somebody else's loan. But you also have to remember, if the situation like that ever does develop, you do have the right to buy out the loans that are ahead of you. And so to try and recover or preserve, whatever terminology you want to use, the money that you have loaned into the program. But I can't think of one where we've lost money unless the city attorney can think of one.
For purposes of subordination, I can't think of one. I can think of situations where we have done just what Mike has said, where we originated in second position, and when there was a default on the primary loan, we have stepped in and bought out the primary lender to protect our interest, but also to take possession of the property, rehab it, and sell it again to an affordable first-time home buyer.
See, so that's.
We analyze those opportunities.
We have a good plan B then on this. And with my experience with Mr. Van Milligan, if you don't remember losing money, it probably didn't happen because you hate that. So thank you very much, and I appreciate that. We're very concerned about, the position that our residents take as in a subordination position, and I appreciate the Plan B. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or discussion on this item? All right. Seeing and hearing none. Motion here is to receive and file and adopt the resolution. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Leyendecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next is public input. At this time, anyone participating in the meeting may address the City Council on the action items on the agenda or on matters under the control of the City Council. For all in-person attendees, please approach the podium and state your name and address when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input. If more than one participant would like to speak, then city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. Individual remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and the overall public input period is limited to 30 minutes. Under the Iowa Open Meetings Law, the City Council can take no formal action on comments given during public input or that do not relate to the action items on the agenda.
Thank you, Adrian. I see we have some public input this evening.
Good evening, everybody. Jason White, Greater Dubuque Development. I was going to go home after the public hearings, but I looked a little further down the line, and soon you're going to have a action item on work sessions, and I realized, as Rick said, he's president and CEO till Monday, so I guess that's me on all those dates. So I've had the pleasure of working with all of you in one way, shape, or form, so I don't need to do too much introduction here. Looking forward to the working relationship we'll have going forward. It's been a good ride the last several years since my family and I moved back here from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, where we built a really strong organization there. And but it wasn't home, so it's an opportunity to now come back home. And I appreciate the board, and a couple of you are on the board, and also the hiring committee. Appreciate their support and confidence in terms of leading this organization. And the team and I are very excited to carry this forward. So appreciate it, and looking forward to everything that's to come. And our first WEC work session, whenever that is here, coming up, being in front of you to talk about how we're going to grow and continue to transform our great community. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason, for your comments. Congratulations from all of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Any other public input? Seeing none here, anything virtually? No. All right, thank you both. We can move on to action items, please.
Action item number 1 is approving the First Amendment to the Development Agreement by and between the City of Dubuque, Iowa, and Greater Dubuque Impact Investment Fund for the redevelopment of 1550 Elm Street.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprink.
I motion that we receive and file and adopt the resolution.
Second by Wethel.
Got a motion by Sprank and a second by Wethel. Is this one I'm coming to you, Krenna? Okay.
Yep. Economic Development Director Jill Connors is recommending City Council adopt the attached resolution approving a First Amendment to Development Agreement by and between the City of Dubuque and Greater Dubuque Impact Investment Fund for the redevelopment of 1550 Elm Street in Dubuque. Due to conditions on the property identified after execution of the development agreement, specifically the confirmation of responsibility for removal of a downed building, which the city has agreed to undertake, the developer has requested extensions to several deadlines set forth in the development agreement. The proposed First Amendment to Development Agreement includes the following modifications. 1, the closing date has been changed from September 10th, 2025 to January 17th, 2026, or such other date as the parties may mutually agree, but not later than January 31, 2026. 2, the city agrees to remove the downed building identified in a new Exhibit J. And 3, requirements related to the type and level of insurance needed during the project have been modified as approved by city staff. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and city council approval.
All right, thank you very much, Krenna. Do we have any discussion, questions on this one? Seeing and hearing none. Okay. Well, in that case, the motion here is to receive and file and adopt this resolution. So Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick. Leindecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 2 is annual review of mayor and city council board and committee appointments.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Roussel.
I move to receive and file and discuss with council.
Second?
All right, got a motion by Roussel and a second by Resnick. Adrian, do you want to introduce this one?
Yes, thank you. At the first regular city council meeting of each year, the mayor and city council are asked to review their appointments to various boards and committees and make any necessary changes. During this year's review, it was noted that one committee listed inaccurate information. In response, the city clerk's office conducted a comprehensive review of all relevant bylaws and agreements and contacted staff for every board and committee to ensure accuracy. This review identified multiple instances of outdated or incorrect information requiring correction. Additionally, confirmation with committee staff revealed that several committees do not mandate city council participation. The updated listing of board and committee information is included, along with a red line comparison showing all changes made. Key updates include removal of the following boards and committees: Dubuque Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, Travel Dubuque Outreach Committee, removed per guidance from Travel Dubuque staff that this committee no longer exists. Dubuque Metropolitan Area Transportation Study Technical Advisory Committee, removed upon confirmation in the bylaws and with ECIA staff that city representation is not mandated. Pre-Disaster Mitigation Plan Committee. This committee convenes only once every 5 years, making it a highly specialized assignment rather than an ongoing responsibility. Requesting a city council member to commit now would be impractical given the long interval before the next meeting. Staff have confirmed that the next request for participation will occur in January of 2028, which will be the appropriate time to determine which council members are available and willing to serve. And the River Valley Initiative Foundation Board of Directors, staff confirmed that this board does not mandate city council participation. And the following board is currently listed as on hold pending outcome of further review, and that's the Friends of Minds of Spain Advisory Board. This board was previously included in the city council appointment list due to a misinterpretation of language in the 28E agreement with Friends of Minds of Spain and related governing documents. The confusion arose because certain entities associated with the Minds of Spain, such as the advisory board, require City of Dubuque representation, a role that's typically fulfilled by city staff. City staff mistakenly assumed the Minds of Spain Advisory Board was the same as the Friends of Minds of Spain Board and required city council service. It has since been verified that the advisory board is separate from the Friends of Minds of Spain Board. We are verifying with Friends of Minds of Spain staff that their bylaws do not require city council representation and will provide an update once confirmed. A previous version of this memo stated that service on the East Central Intergovernmental Association, or ECIA, Executive Committee and the East Central Development Corporation, or ECDC, was voluntary. After consultation with ECIA Executive Director Mayhington, it was clarified that ECIA's intent is for the chairperson or their designee of each functional planning committee to serve on the executive committee. However, this requirement is not accurately articulated in the existing bylaws. Ms. Higdon confirmed that ECIA staff will review the bylaws and work with the board to revise the language so that it accurately reflects this intent. The mayor serves as the chairperson of the Dubuque Metropolitan Area Transportation Study Policy Committee and, by virtue of that role, is therefore required to serve on the ECIA Executive Committee, either personally or through a designee, pending the bylaw update. In addition, all members of the Executive Committee are required to participate in the ECDC. Assistant City Manager Corey Burbach currently serves on both the ECIA Executive Committee and the ECDC as the mayor's designee, and the city is therefore in compliance with these membership requirements. While council members may adjust any board and committee assignments, appointments must be confirmed for the following boards and committees previously served on by former council members Rick Jones and Susan Farber: Dubuque Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, Travel Dubuque Board of Directors; Dubuque Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, Travel Dubuque Sister City Committee; Dubuque Initiatives, Dubuque Metropolitan Area Solid Waste Agency Board, and Dubuque Racing Association Board of Directors. Assignments are provided in multiple templates for easy reference, and once all appointments are finalized, the city clerk's office will notify administrative staff for each board and committee regarding any changes. And that's all I have.
All right, well, thank you very much, Adrian. And thanks for the work that you and staff have done to be able to clarify some of these things that we didn't know we needed to clarify. So we really appreciate that that was done as well. All right, well, this is a fun time of year where we get to sit and talk about what we'd like to do outside of these meetings and the things that we can do. Just for the new members, you know, the way we've done this before is we've kind of just had a discussion about it to figure out what things people are willing to do, but I think also as importantly, what we are able to do. It's important that you're able to make the meetings that we actually are assigned to. So all of us have different schedules. Some of us have 9-to-5 jobs, others don't. So I think it's important just to recognize our own limitations and abilities in doing that. And I think we've all generally recognized that about each other so that we can make these appointments in a way that's beneficial for all of us. And then we basically report back on the work that we're doing with these committees when needed through council member reports, but then we also will do it. You'll find that a lot of the information actually comes in the form of action items and different things. I mean, for GDDC is a great example. For those of us that serve on the GDDC board, a lot of the things that require any sort of council action or knowledge are going to come to this desk in the form of some sort of a resolution or, you know, all kinds of things like that. So otherwise, we just kind of report on those things. The other thing I'll open up to is if anybody has any questions about any of these boards or what we need to do on them, now's a great time to ask them. Don't be afraid to just ask any questions. That goes for all of us that have been serving on these boards for a long time too. So, yeah, Mr. Staver, please.
So on the Dubuque Area Convention Visitors Bureau Travel Dubuque Board, typically how long are those meetings?
They generally go an hour or so, Mike, right? I know that Mike and I have served on that board, and I think about an hour, sometimes maybe a little bit longer. But between, I mean, they usually are at 4 p.m. and by 5:30 normally.
Okay.
And they also have a popcorn machine.
I wasn't actually going to mention that part because that is the highlight of those particular meetings is the popcorn machine, which Mike is particularly obsessed with, I will say. So, yeah.
So I have a little bit of a conflict there. So is this appropriate time to say that, or?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think Wednesday nights are kind of a no-go for me.
Okay.
So that would be a tough one.
And those are Tuesdays normally.
Right. Originally, I thought it was going to work out, but I see they changed now to Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Oh, did it change to
Yeah.
Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
For
Travel Dubuque?
Travel Dubuque?
For the, yes.
Yeah, originally it was Tuesdays, now it's Wednesdays.
I don't recall receiving any information about that.
The third Wednesday.
The Board of Directors. So the Dubuque Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Travel Dubuque Board of Directors is the third Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. The Sister City Committee is the second Thursday of every other month at 4 p.m.
I'll say that that was one that was, because I did divide this up amongst my team, so that confirmation in terms of appointment was likely confirmed by Assistant City Clerk Trish Gleason.
Okay.
But hearing that there might be some contradiction information here, that's certainly one that we can follow up with to confirm that that's accurate.
Yeah. And Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't recall receiving, and I'm searching my email too, I don't recall receiving any sort of information that says that Travel Dubuque meetings are moved to Wednesdays. I think.
And actually, I'm going to just go in the back and call Keith.
All right, so we'll do that, and then we'll
Okay.
figure it out, yeah.
Perfect.
So Mike will try to get some verification on that one. So we'll hold on the Travel Dubuque, but thanks for pointing that out, Mr. Staver. Yeah, Mr. Landecker.
Mr. Mayor, and maybe this question is more for Corinna. Regarding the Travel Dubuque board seat, is that an ex officio board seat, non-voting, or is that voting?
I believe
It's
that's
a voting seat.
It
It's
is?
voting seat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone on that board votes. Yeah.
Okay. I asked because given my role on the, what is the Field of Dreams board, and also being part of the financing on that project, I think it could be somewhat problematic.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Thanks for pointing that out, yeah. Okay. Ms. Wethel?
I just wanted to add, and I had shared with Adrian, I currently serve on the Dubuque Early Childhood, and I had shared briefly with us at council member reports a few meetings ago, I think. But regarding my appointment to that, I wanted to inform council that that appointment and that board is somewhat dependent upon the state legislature's decision this legislative session, as county early childhood boards could be transitioning to a regions model, similar to what they have for behavioral health and addiction services at the state level. And so this would be similar to that Region 7 that we are in for those other services. And Dubuque County would be part of a 14 county region. I actually applied, was interviewed, and selected as one of the 14 individuals in the 14 county region as the D7 ad hoc committee. And so we're meeting in January or February to make a plan that should the state legislature decide that they are going to go to a district system rather than a county system, that we are prepared. That appointment, though, would not be made to another council member. It was related more to two hats that I filled. One was a elected official as well as a healthcare provider. And so if I would no longer serve on council, I would serve in another capacity. So that might be gone, although we don't know yet. So I would like to just stay in that space if I may, knowing that there may be transition depending on the legislature's decision. I was actually the appointed Dubuque Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Travel Dubuque Outreach Committee. And so as that is no longer an appointment, assuming that the Board of Directors for the Dubuque Area Convention Visitors Bureau is the third Wednesday at 4 p.m., I was going to try and make that work, but no, it's Tuesdays?
Right.
Okay,
That
okay.
works.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I'll just leave it from there. I just wanted to, that is another transitional move that may occur, so.
Okay. All right, thank you for all that. Yeah, Ms. Russell?
Mr. Mayor, I have 5 assignments. They all work well for me. I'd be happy and pleased to continue with those 5.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Spring?
Basically, I'm happy with all the boards and commissions that I'm on right now as well. So
Okay.
I would not be asking to add any more.
Okay.
I would ask to be appointed to the Dubuque Metropolitan Area Waste Agency Board. It is the third Wednesday at noon, I believe, Adrienne.
That is correct.
Okay, great. But willing to certainly discuss if someone else has a desire.
Yep. All right, so far we've got Mr. Staver for sure, Travel Dubuque. You're requesting the Solid Waste Agency Board. Mr. Linedecker, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I do think I have an interest in being on the Dubuque initiatives. I think given my business background, especially in banking and in light of what they do and their mission on lending out funds and granting funds out in the community, I think it'd be impactful, so.
Okay, all right. Got you for DI. Mr. Resnick, are you
I'm
looking
set.
to move? Or you?
I'm looking forward to continuing my assignments, but
Okay.
I'm set. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So that leaves us with, by my count, the Travel Dubuque Sister City Committee and the DRA, Board of Directors. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
So I'll take Jones's spot on the DRA. That's, yeah.
on the DRA board, okay. All right. Is anybody able to serve on the Sister City Committee? And, you know, just a quick commentary on Sister City Committee. It's been one of those committees where, you know, we used to have 3 sister cities, we now have 2. Personally, as mayor and communicating a lot with other cities, both nationally and internationally, I think it would be great if we could continue to work on expanding this in some way. I think a lot of that falls to Travel Dubuque. This is within Travel Dubuque's purview. But I would love to see us start to talk more seriously about other sister city relationships. I think it could be very useful in the world we live in today. I think it would be a great thing. And I think it's also a great opportunity. I think one of the greatest opportunities that we miss out on is the opportunity to teach our younger residents about other places and expose them to these types of experiences and have more interaction with schools, for instance, about sister cities and what that means. I just think there's all kinds of great benefits to it. I would love to see us do that. So I do think it's an important board. I'd like to see the importance actually increase, is what I would say, over time. So, are you about to volunteer for something else, Ms. Roussel? You are, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm just double checking to make sure that they,
Mr. Linedecker did raise his.
Did you? No? Okay.
oh, you go.
No.
Are you?
If you're interested and passionate about it, you had me at popcorn machine, so I got to go to Travel Dubuque. Somehow, some way.
I will note, we usually don't use the popcorn machine for Sister City Committee meetings, but now that I know it's there, I think I'm going to ask
use
at the
the
next
popcorn
one.
machine for the
So
Sister City
that will be
meetings.
the first
there's no
item on
reason
the
not to.
agenda.
Yeah. So, yeah, Mr. Linedecker, if that's something you're interested in,
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that'd be great, and I'd love to, and I'd like to start to talk to the Sister City Committee more. I'll try to be more purposeful about that in the years ahead, because there are a lot of opportunities, and we've seen those. I mean, we've had delegation actually. Jill Connors was one of the folks that went to the convening of the parties for the UN Climate Conference again this year. I was able to go last year. We have a lot of international work that we've done as a city, and I think it would be a really good thing to be able to do that. So thank you, Mr. Linedecker, for doing that one too. Okay. Then is that everything? The needs that we had?
Yep.
So I just wanted to point out for the new members a couple of these that we that we all are on. So the DMATS, the Dubuque Metropolitan Area Transportation Study, we actually have, is it the third Thursday every month? Yeah, somebody remind me.
Isn't it second?
Is it the second? Okay, so there's a Thursday every single month that we meet, and it's at noon. So it's and you can do this online. So it's actually a very convenient meeting to be able to attend. I would encourage you to do that as often as you possibly can. What we are talking about is major transportation projects in the region. So I, as the largest city in the region, the mayor of the largest city, am the chair of this region, and we talk about federal dollars and state dollars. Most recently, we had a meeting with Stu Anderson of the Iowa Department of Transportation. We give a presentation to the Iowa Department of Transportation Commission every year. And then when we talk about things, we're essentially working with our regional partners all throughout Dubuque County and then parts of Wisconsin and Illinois about the major transportation projects that apply to all of us. So it's a good learning experience, but it's also something that we have an active voice in. So we make the decisions about these projects with the rest of the appointed members in our region. So anytime you're able to make it, and you can totally do it virtually, if you're able to make it in person, that's great too. But it's an important one to do. If you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Adrian or anyone. We can talk about those. Conference board is one that happens essentially once a year. We have 2 meetings once a year, and it's right around budget time, and it has to do with the property assessments. So we meet with our city assessor, Troy Passner, and the county assessor, and we sit down and actually have this meeting. It's a joint meeting with us, the Dubuque County supervisors, and the members of the school board. And we make some decisions, essentially approve what the city assessor puts in front of us is what we do every single year. And that happens before the budget time so that we know what level of property tax asking we're working with and that kind of thing. So that is a meeting that we schedule together, and we just need to have a quorum there. So we don't all need to attend that. We just have to have 4 of us that are able to attend that meeting when that does come. I'm looking to see if I'm missing anything else that I would need to describe. Anybody else have any other thoughts? I guess I did want to comment on the ECIA board that Adrian clarified. We do have Corey Burbach as the assistant city manager serving as my proxy on that one. It is a requirement since we're the chair of DMATS, but I appreciate Corey continuing to serve in that capacity, and we do have that filled, so we don't need to worry about that one. Anything else I'm missing? All right, any other questions or discussion now? Okay. So we don't need to vote on anything. We basically have just agreed that this is where we're going to serve, and that's that. And if we have changes that come along, we can do that. Now that I said we don't have to vote, I'm looking at Krenna because she looks confused, and maybe we should vote.
Yes, I think maybe now that we've had the discussion, we should amend it to be receive and file and appoint everyone as so.
All right. Krenna says we should vote. So Ms. Russell, you made the original motion, so.
Yes, I move that we vote on the choices that we have made.
Okay. And receive and file?
Yep,
Receive and file,
And
vote on
maybe
the
approve
changes.
the choices that we've
And
made?
approve the changes that we've made.
Okay, so that is the motion.
Yes.
And the second was by Mr. Resnick? Or-
I'll approve that.
Okay, you're good with that too. All right. We've got a motion by Ms. Russell, second by Mr. Resnick. And thank you, everyone, for your extra service as city council members. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Leindecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 3 is work session requests, Greater Dubuque Development Corporation quarterly updates.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Russell.
I move to receive and file and set the work sessions for the dates specified.
Second?
We've got a motion by Russell and a second by Resnick. And we're talking about one work session at a time here, I think, right? So, or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right, Ms. Russell. I was wrong. We were talking about several. Okay. And then just for Mr. Staver and Mr. Leindecker, if we, just to make sure you're clear on this one, we tend to put these on the agenda and approve these as they come along, just mainly so we all agree that we know that it's the time and we're all good with the time, but then also so the public knows when the work sessions are coming up and we put those out there for them. So if these times are generally, most of them are going to be at times where they're before a council meeting. Sometimes they are separate, and we have separate work sessions outside a council meeting. But these that we're talking about tonight are actually previous to a council meeting, right before it. Okay? So motion is to set those work sessions for the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation updates. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Leindecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Action item number 4 is work session request, Historic Millwork Outdoor Community Space Update.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Sprank.
I motion that we receive and file and schedule a work session for that date and time.
Second by Wethel.
Motion by Sprank, second by Wethel. That also works for everyone. Okay. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Roussel.
Aye.
Resnick. Leindecker.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Staver.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0.
Next are council member reports.
All right. This is the portion of the meeting where we basically just get to talk about things that we've been up to so we can keep each other informed. You'll find that Ms. Roussel's been up to a lot most of the time, is what we, no, I'm just joking with you. But we really do, get an opportunity to be able to talk about those things. So I'll just say, welcome, Tyson, Chris. Thank you for being here. Thank you for serving. Thought we had a good first discussion here as the night went on. I'm looking forward to serving with both of you, and I think we all are. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So other reports. Yeah, Ms. Rousseau.
Well, now that I have my voice back, I've been very busy. My church, the Bread of Life Presbyterian, had a food distribution in late December. We served 203 families, including 59 families that just walked up to the event. We gave out nearly 8,000 pounds of food, hats, scarves, and hygiene items. We also had a food drive at church and took 82 bags of food and supplies down to the food pantry. I had the pleasure of meeting both of our new council members. It was really great to get to know you ahead of time. Thank you for taking time to do that. I met with Matt Majeski, the new CEO for HACAP, Hawkeye Area Community Action Program. He replaces Jane Drapo, who retired in December, and Matt's going to come to meet the council when his schedule allows. And I now serve as the HACAP Board Treasurer, so I attended their steering committee and the board meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Rousseau. It was the holidays, so we have excuses for, taking some time with family, yeah. Mr. Linedecker,
I can jump in.
Yeah, please.
So one is I want to thank the staff for preparing the agenda and the materials for today, and initially what I've been really up to is doing the onboarding orientation process. So that kicked off with Mike Van Milligan and Corey Burbach, and so that's been great, and meeting with all the department heads. So I'm making the rotations through that, and Corinne and I have met and spent some time together. So it's been good to get to know each of the department heads by name and get to understand them a little more and what they do in their respective roles. So I look forward to continuing that process. I think I have a number to complete yet this week. But as a new council member, I'm really looking forward to, and today this evening was a great example of just listening and learning and getting to understand the process and being a part of the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll
Staver.
Yeah, I'll second all of that. A great thanks to everyone that's helped me along the way so far, and I've also been doing a lot of meetings, meeting a lot of department heads, and enjoying the process. It's been fun. It's not normal for me to have 5 appointments in a day, but and try to work and everything else. But it's it's an adjustment that I like. Yeah, I think tonight was interesting. And initially when I read the agenda, some things bothered me about the one Novelty Ironworks. Asked a few questions, got clarification, and went very well, I thought. So yeah, that's been a good process, and I'm looking forward to many more. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bethel.
I will just mention, because I don't think Danny is going to share his hard work that he does with the Dubuque Pride organization, but we had the Dubuque Pride Family Holiday Dinner on last Tuesday night at the First Congregational United, and it was wonderful. It was catered by Convivium, did a lovely job, and shared space with a lot of people who are really good at Uno, incidentally. But I really appreciated the opportunity, and so thank you for all the work that you do with Dubuque Pride. Mr. Sprank, I appreciate your work and your commitment.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Well, just very quickly, I wanted to comment, if you don't mind, on your comments, which is, I tried to do that too. I come to meetings, and I usually have a point of view, but I always try to keep an open mind, because your colleagues here have a lot of great information for you to consider as well. And so I try to do, and I think that's a great thing that you do, you remain open-minded, but come with questions, and come with, this is kind of sticking in my craw a little bit, and then I'd love to talk about that. And if it's a big question, I used to ask questions the day of, and the administration would do as much as they could to get answers, but that's really tough. So we get the agenda on Thursday night or Friday morning sometimes, and so right away, I look over it and see if there's a tough question that I want to ask, and so then they do the best they can. Usually we know these topics are coming up sooner because it's been building to this, but I appreciate and I thank you very much for having that open mind. And when you talked about, Mr. Leyendecker, talk about their beginning experiences, I remember, we've done this. And we were always given the example, Mr. Van Milligan, could you just 30 seconds talk about how you went around to each department when you first got here, and really it made an impact about how do you learn the job, but get out there and do it.
Yeah, well, all right. It was a while ago, since I've been here 33 years now. But what I did for the first 5 years that I worked here is I worked every month with a different employee, trying to learn our organization and our community since I was new to the community. And I've always felt that it was a great benefit. And so I appreciate that council members are willing to take all the time it takes to meet with all of our departments and learn about what they do, because it is a very diverse operation that exists here in our community.
Well, thank you, everyone, for all those things. So I'll just mention a couple. First of all, the Hawks won their bowl game, so go Hawks. That was actually really fun to watch. So I just have to say it because it's been a while since the Hawks have been that great at football. So aside from that and all the fun holiday things, I'll mention a couple of important ones. We did have our legislative dinner with our legislators and other elected officials right before Christmas. Everybody was able to attend. Glad that we were able to be there and have that discussion. I think it was a great start. We have now continued that discussion. We do have a new director of strategic partnerships in Anderson Sansi, who has hit the ground absolutely sprinting and already set up meetings, 3 of them, in fact, today with me and several of our legislators, which is something that we do every single legislative session when it starts. So I get a chance to sit and talk with them, and really it's a continuation of the conversation that you heard at the legislative dinner, which was property taxes, property taxes, property taxes. That's what they're going to talk about. That's what we need to discuss with them. And what I'm finding so far, and Mike has been in a couple of those meetings as well, all of our legislators locally are open to continuing to discuss those things with us, keep us at the table so we can make sure that we're a part of this really important discussion for us as a city, but really for cities across the state of Iowa. What could happen this legislative session could completely transform the property tax system in our state. And it's important that we have a voice in that, and I appreciate our legislators allowing us to do that. We'll continue to do that. I will definitely make some trips to Des Moines to talk to them this session when it begins next week, because that's when it begins. And then also Anderson is making some plans to be able to go and do that. So I think we can all trust that Anderson's doing a good job of setting up quite a few meetings and being, definitely being involved in all that. Aside from that, I think there was one other thing I was going to say, but I forget it now, so I'm sure it's not nearly as important. So for once I can say at the end of a meeting, which won't be very often, because I'm sure that Krenna's going to have some things for us in closed session very soon, but for this particular meeting, we have no further business, so we are adjourned.